McCarlan's through, he might go for it, still going, trying to barge his way through, goes to his back, what a goal!
Arriving Rian O'Neill from an almost impossible angle, and that's the rousing score Armagh were looking for.
Conor Turbin kicks this one in. Oh, that's absolutely superb.
Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Sideline Eye podcast. We're looking ahead to the start of the Ulster Championship as Armagh travel to Brewster Park on Sunday to take on Fermanagh. I'm delighted to be joined by former Fermanagh footballer and Fermanagh minor manager Niall McElroy, and we'll also hear from Armagh captain Aidan Forker at the end of the show as well. Niall, it's not so long ago I had you on and we were talking about a big league game in Brewster Park, and it's all championship now. It's an exciting time once the championship kicks in.
It definitely is, Sean. Yeah, I suppose. Look, it's a good time of the year when the Ulster Championship comes around, and although I think it's still hard getting used to the earlier start of the championship over the last couple of years, and in April time, and I suppose the poor enough weather as well. But look, it's great that's here all the same. It's always a good time of year, and I suppose Monaghan and Cavan got it going last weekend, but for Fermanagh and Armagh, we're really looking forward to this weekend.
And I suppose the last time I had you on, Niall, we were talking about ins and outs of the league and league form and that, but when we're analysing this coming game, we actually have something to base it off from that first league game. So I suppose taking it in, the one thing Fermanagh would have took from it probably is that there was no goals conceded, and Armagh had a couple of goal chances and their kick-out press worked, and we'll maybe get into that as well. But from a Fermanagh perspective, one key positive out of it was keeping that Armagh forward line relatively quiet with a clean sheet.
That will definitely have given Fermanagh a boost, even looking ahead to the championship game. It's I suppose in a couple of games Fermanagh, in the league were fit to keep the goals out, and on other days they weren't. But definitely this weekend it's going to have to be a massive focus. Like Armagh got 9 goals over the course of their league campaign. There's a number of games they got 2 goals. They are a massive threat, with both points, and goals in particular as well. And I think looking into this weekend, if Fermanagh is to win this game, they're going to have to keep the goals out. You say it in any game, but Armagh have potential to always get a high number of points. They've proven that in the majority of their league games this year, and even in the Fermanagh game with 15 points. So if they're to add a goal or two to the high number of points that they usually get, it'll be very, very difficult for Fermanagh to get a victory. So I think number one priority this weekend would be keep the goals out. Same way that they did it the last time. You look at it, the 2018 championship, Fermanagh got a victory. There's no goals that day, and I think it's imperative that if Fermanagh are to win this weekend, that they have to keep the goals out.
And I mentioned that kick-out press, like Armagh should have got maybe at least a goal, could have 2 goals maybe in that first half, really pressing the Fermanagh kick-out. And it was notable that it was very obvious from the first kick-out what Fermanagh were trying to do. They were trying to bunch and break in the middle, and Armagh just sort of gathered in a ring around them and didn't let them break out into the space, and a couple of times the short kickouts were coughed up. Is that a concern for Fermanagh that Armagh worked their kick out so easily, or do you see them changing, or how do you see them dealing with the kick out this weekend?
I would look. I suppose pressing kickouts is a thing a lot of teams are placing focus on at the minute, and there's a lot of thought and a lot of coaching going into it, and clearly there's a lot of work going on in the training pitch of all teams, regarding it. This is a new thing. Even you see the likes of the ring around. You have a lot of teams putting maybe 3 and 4 men up in the full forward line, maybe another line behind them of maybe 3 or 4, and maybe another line behind as well. So there's a lot of teams are definitely pressing up, but again, it doesn't necessarily be pressing up all the time. It's a very demanding role for players to be pushing up on every occasion. There's times maybe when a team's back defensively and they're after breaking up and counter attacking, and it can be difficult then to keep on the press. There's times maybe when if it's a dead ball situation, there'll be an opportunity to press up. But I think Fermanagh have equally so have done a lot of work on their own kickouts, and over the last couple of years since Kieran Donnelly's come in, each year they've added something new to it, and they've developed it throughout the league with both Sean McNally and Ross Brogue. They've been trying a variety of kickouts, and the short one's one that has worked well. But again, it depends on the movement. It's a goalkeeper can be accurate enough to find a man, but they have to get into the space. And I suppose when teams are cutting off that space, it's difficult. But I think Fermanagh can use both the short one and the long one. If Armagh are pressing up, they have a bit of size around the middle. Fermanagh that if they can get the ball out long, even over the bodies of some of the Armagh players. I think that when teams are pressing men up, they're given, like I say, if there's 3 and 4 men in the full forward line and maybe another line of 3, say, that, and even a ring situation, if you get the ball over the top of their heads, out to the middle and get men in around the break of ball, you should hope to maybe even have an overload of men in there, because if Armagh's pressing so many men further forward, you can't also then be around the break. So I think it's about mixing it up. It's okay for Armagh, they can press up and they might stop some of the short ones. But again, with keepers nowadays, they're probably more skillful than they've ever been, and I think even when teams are pressing, you can still find short ones. And yes, there's going to be situations like the league game where maybe you might cough up the odd one here and there, but I still think that it's a risk worth taking at times to try and get your hands on the ball. But again, if you're going long and you're winning it, well, you don't necessarily have to worry about going short. But I think it's just mixing up the key thing.
It's just that balancing risk and reward, isn't it? Now, like we've seen it a lot with goalkeepers, and even that day that we're talking about, the goalkeeper, I think it was Bogue, was between the net, was in the nets that day, and he'd come out the field. Armagh got a goal chance with Paddy Burns, and he tried to lob the keeper and missed it. But it's probably risk and reward, everything goalkeeping that we're talking about in the modern game. Yeah,
look, this started off, as it was a number of years ago, with 1 or 2 teams bringing keepers out, and a lot of teams are doing it now. And I think obviously when a keeper's off his line, sometimes it's easy to blame a keeper if the goal goes in. But the key thing is for the team in possession of the ball, they can't lose it. You're looking at the top teams that are bringing keepers out and they're retaining the ball. If you lose that ball out and you've got the keeper out, you're a bother. And I think it's clear too that teams, and maybe as individual players, are working on it themselves, just shooting from further out and having a go at it, which they might as well do. Look, if the keeper's off his line and you've got an accurate kick, it's worth a try. If it goes wide, it goes wide. But it's definitely something teams must be working on, because we've seen a lot of opportunities. Even it's the game of the weekend, Paddy Lynch for Cavan. Fair enough, it was an open goal he was shooting in there, but it's still not the easiest thing to do when you're trying to find a small space. But look, it's a risk teams are taking. If the keeper's coming out, that's all well and good, but you have to have somebody keeping a wee eye behind to see can they get on the line in place of the keeper. It's a tricky one, and you feel that when a goal goes in, maybe teams may be thinking maybe we should stop doing this, but a lot of teams aren't. They're continuing to do it, and they're confident to do it. And so Fermanagh has been caught a couple of times this year, but again, it's about the whole team collective, and if you can keep possession of the ball out the pitch, maybe it's worth bringing the keeper out.
I suppose another interesting stat from that game, and I probably didn't realise it at the time, to be honest. It was only reading back on it. But Fermanagh had 9 different scores that day, so 9 different scores with 11 points scored on Sean Cassidy, who has been one of your best forwards of the league. He didn't start. I think he came on and did get a point. But that's another positive for Fermanagh, 9 different scores. I think Armagh had 7, so probably just more people chipping in with more than a point is what they're looking at. I think Garvin Jones and Declan McCusker were the only 2 that scored more than 1 point. So 9 different scores like that's a good scoring rate from across the field.
Look, there's no doubt Fermanagh have a great spread, and I suppose we've probably always been that type of team where with plenty of players to chip in. I think they've always had a marquee forward who scores highly every single weekend that some teams might have. And that's maybe put the onus on other players to chip in. I suppose it's the way football's went too. You talk about Armagh having 7 scorers as well. And, it's a case of Sean Cassidy wasn't playing that day when then other players just had to step up, and they've done that. You have a lot of players now, come from half back that maybe even were previously maybe were forwards. You see a lot of teams putting maybe half forwards back to half back. So it's players that are capable of scoring, and again, that's why you chip in if you're 1 or 2. It's difficult in the modern game too, with the pace the game's played at, the distance of you're covering your even forwards nowadays, or go back into defence, and there's times that when they're back there, it's an opportunity maybe for a defender who's maybe had a breather for maybe a couple of minutes previous to make a charge up into the attack. And so I think nowadays you've probably more all round footballers on the pitch compared to years ago when you had Pacific defenders who maybe wouldn't have scored a whole pile and it was all left to the forwards. Nowadays you've on a team you have 13, 14, 15 footballers who are all confident they could have a shot, and I think that's probably why you see a great spread of scores. And then if you can add in, your forwards like Garvin Jones, Sean Cassidy, who have on their day in the league this year chipped in with big scores. So if you can mix that with a number of other players chipping in, you can get higher score lines. And I think that's probably been a reflection of Fermanagh this year. In a good few games, they've probably scored a lot more maybe than they have done in previous years. You think of like the day against Cork was like 16 scores, and there's other days when they chipped them maybe 14 and stuff. So it mightn't be enough to always win a game, but I think definitely Fermanagh have worked a lot on their attacking threat over the last couple of years under Kieran Donnelly, and you can see it in their scorelines. They've scored more than normal. So it's definitely been a good positive that a number of players have been happy in that regard with scores.
Now, you mentioned that 2018 championship game, and I do chat to Aidan Forker a wee bit about it too. Like, I know myself, and I'm sure a lot of Armagh fans are still scared by that day. And saying the offer, once the draw was made, I was just thinking, oh no, not Brewster Park. And probably the same for a lot of Armagh fans. But that day just showed what Fermanagh can do when they're in home turf. That was a 12-7 win for Fermanagh under Rory Gallagher. And I think they went on to the Ulster final that year too. So that if anybody's in Armagh is feeling too confident, they don't have to look too far to just bring them back down a peg or two.
We love bringing teams to Brewster, Sean, and over the years we've had some massive results there. That one was obviously one of note. And look, again, we talk about that day was the key thing was you talked earlier about the goals. We kept the goals out that day. It was a low scoring game, 12 points to 7 points that day, and I think it's probably going to be something. We need something similar this weekend, maybe to keep the score down. It's we always have confidence in Brewster. We've had a number of big scallops over the years, and when the draw comes out and we're at home, we always feel we're at the shout. And I think it'll be no different on Sunday. You have Armagh coming down, who I think are always wary of Fermanagh. They probably have confidence that we can beat Fermanagh, but like I say, even the likes of 2018, it is a good while ago. And look, there's not a massive amount of players involved from Fermanagh point of view. Anyway, there's maybe 5 or 6 that are playing that day, or came on that day that are playing. Armagh probably have a few more, but certainly it'll give Fermanagh players, some belief to look back on the likes of that. Your history, I suppose, gives you a certain level of confidence, and the fact that it's been done before, recent enough times, will give the Fermanagh players some belief, going into the game this week. Equally so, you'll have Armagh players that'll remember that day, and in the lead up to this week, they'll be a bit wary as well. But look, once the ball's thrown in on Sunday, 2018's long gone, it might impact the build up this week. Like I say, it might give Fermanagh a bit of confidence in training this week. It might make Armagh a bit more tuned in. Would it make any difference the result on Sunday? I don't think so.
And at that time, Niall, both teams were in Division 3. They were in the Division 3 final and both got promoted. This time around, they're going in. Armagh have just been promoted out of Division 2, Fermanagh relegated. But in terms of last day out, Armagh are coming in off a loss, while Fermanagh are coming in off a win. So I suppose from Fermanagh's point of view, how did they take relegation? Or obviously it was a bit of a blow, having beaten Calvin on the last day. It still wasn't enough to stay up. So is it a case of drawing a line under the league and head into the championship, or how's the feeling in Fermanagh about getting relegated?
I think it is a case of drawing a line under it. I don't think it's going to massively affect this weekend anyway. I think the fact that they got a victory in the last day against Calvin, it actually was very, very important, because there was the previous game against Louth where they had a disappointing result, and you'd worry that maybe would have affected them going into the championship. But in fairness to the lads, now they turned it around massively. It was only a week after that Louth game where they had to face Calvin. Probably in one way it was a good thing, because they hadn't too much time to get too despondent about the Louth game. But had they've lost that Calvin game on the back of losing the Louth game and losing to Armagh, previously, it could have had a big, big impact into the championship. But there's no doubt that Calvin victory would have given them a lift. Kildare weren't able to do them a favour then against Louth, which was very disappointing. But I think overall, from Division 2 this year, Fermanagh will gain a lot of confidence. Yes, they've been relegated, and they have to go at it again for Division 3 next year. But I think some of the performances that they put in Division 2 will give them a great lift. They weren't far off staying up. Yeah, they did go down at the end of the day, but they definitely weren't far off it. And I think this team has really developed a lot over the last couple of years. Having a massive amount to show for as such, maybe in trophies or that. And now you might say, well, they've ended up back in Division 3. But there has been a lot of progress made with this team. And I think that they've developed a lot. There's a lot of players who've gained that experience of playing in Division 2, which will stand to them even going into this year's championship. So look, I think that the Calvin victory was vital. It'll bring them a bit of a pep in the step down for the preparation for championship. I think the pressure's probably off them this weekend now. They're underdogs in many people's eyes against Armagh. So I think they're going to go into this game with a good frame of mind, and I don't think relegation is going to affect it too much.
In terms of the underdogs tag, now, Cavan were underdogs last week, Wicklow were underdogs, Waterford were underdogs. It was the weekend of the underdogs last week. Do you see, I suppose, for a prediction to end the show, how do you see this going, Now, do you give Fermanagh a chance, or do you think will Armagh be too strong, or how's it going to go?
I definitely give Fermanagh a chance. Like I say, in Brewster Park, we always feel that there's an opportunity there. Against Armagh as well. Like I say, we talk about previous victories. There has been, historically, we have had a couple of big championship wins over Armagh, which again can help in the lead up to games. I think Armagh's coming into this game with a lot of pressure on them. To be honest, I think Armagh should probably, really disappointed with not winning the Division 2 title. This group of Armagh players have been, together as a group for a good while now, and probably don't have a lot to show for trophies wise. Even the likes of the league final there, I'm guessing they're going to be kind of disappointed after that, because that game was another one that was really there for them. When they had the opportunity at the end, Oisín really put them up a point. I thought then they were going to kick on and win that game, and they didn't. But I think there's probably a lot of questions asked of Armagh because of that. This team probably needs a trophy. And probably for this year, the Anglo Celts probably the only trophy they have a realistic chance of winning for the remainder of the season, because Sam is probably out of their reach. So I think they could probably come into this game with a lot of pressure on them. Fermanagh doesn't have much pressure on them. They're at home. They've improved as a team. They've had a lot of games against high quality opposition in Division 2 this year. So I think they're going to be really ready for this game. And even the likes of the league game against Armagh earlier on, where although they didn't win the game, they've done a good performance. Like you say, no goals conceded that day. So they'll be looking for the likes of that again. If they can keep the Armagh point tally down, and like I say, the goals and stuff as well, I think there's definitely an opportunity there. And I wouldn't see it as a massive shock if Fermanagh were to win at the weekend. Armagh are no doubt about it going as favourites, rightly so. They're probably together, again as a group a lot longer than this Fermanagh group are together. They've been involved in a lot of big games as well. They were in those to final last year also. There's no doubt Armagh are favourites for the game, but we always give ourselves a chance.
Yeah, it's such a big game, and championship just brings that bit of buzz and a bit of extra atmosphere and whatever else, and Armagh fans usually come out in numbers, so hopefully there'll be a lot of orange in Brewster Park come Sunday.
Do we bring too many down with you now?
Oh, there's a good crowd going. I'm sure that Armagh usually bring a big following, so I couldn't see it being any different on Sunday. But no, good man. Cheers for coming on. Great to have a chat with you, and we'll hear from Armagh captain Aidan Forker now. I spent about 10 minutes with him just discussing the championship and a few other things. So we'll hear from Aidan now. Niall, great to hear from you. Thanks very much for coming on.
Good man, Sean. Thank you.
So, Aidan, we're a couple of days out from the start of the championship, a couple of weeks from the league. I suppose it's condensed, Aidan. How do you find it? There's not much breathing space in between games.
Yeah, listen, that's the model we all went for, I suppose, as a playing population, and it's interesting because if you get a knock or niggle, you're in trouble. So, but if you're going well, it's a good thing. You can keep the momentum going. So, we had a couple of weeks there to get ourselves sort of tidied up and sorted out and get a bit of training done. So, we've really parked at the edge of the season in terms of the league, and looking forward to the Ulster Championship on Sunday.
I'm looking ahead to the championship, Aidan. There's a lot of talk about provincials and everything else, and split seasons and condensed seasons and everything else. But what does the Ulster Championship mean? I'm sure it still means an awful lot, and I think everybody sort of says that about the Ulster Championship. It's what is keeping the provincial championships alive.
Yeah, listen, I think it means as much as it ever did, especially in Ulster. I'm not sure what the other provinces feel themselves, but it's a championship medal that everyone's chasing, and I think whether that be ourselves trying to get one and get into get a couple of results and get into the final and see what happens, or few counties in the same fold are Derry going for 3 in a row. So I think it would mean the same to all the counties, and it's a free hit for all counties, given everyone knows what's sort of happening after.
And I suppose just on the league campaign, a disappointing finish to it, but Armagh, I suppose, they achieved their main objective, which was to get up and to get into Division 1. And just on that league final, disappointing, but as I say, I'm sure promotion was the main thing. So you're probably happy enough with how the league campaign went.
Yeah, I think overall be positive about the league in terms of getting ourselves back to Division One, and going undefeated in the league. Albeit the final was probably just poor from ourselves, from the playing group, just went in a wee bit flat and couldn't get ourselves going, and were in the game for a long time, and could have maybe nipped it, but it just didn't down the stretch. And we've had a lot of conversations about it, and we've taken the positives overall from the league, and definitely parked it and ready for the next stage of the year.
And one of those positives, I'm sure, Aidan, coming out of it is the likes of Oisín Connady really coming into his own, and playing really well. Peter Green as well. Darragh McMullen got a start in the league final. So there's fresh faces coming into the squad the whole time, and I'm sure pushing everybody on and training and everything else.
Yeah, them boys have worked really hard to get their opportunity, and they've grabbed it with both hands, and are keeping some serious quality out of the team as well. So, yeah, it's great for us as a group to be keeping and finding new players that'll push everybody and drive the competitiveness within the group. And we know now, any of us who are not on it, there's people there to come and replace it, who are chomping at the bit to come and play on our battle ready, and experience now, having them boys that you mentioned as well, particularly getting plenty of minutes in the league, and there's a lot of other boys who are experienced coming in behind and starting to come into the fold as well. So I would argue we're in a good place.
Probably when you started out, Aidan, you were coming in that team that was, Kieran McKeever and Stephen McDonald and boys like that were the leaders, I think, in that group. You're now one of the older heads. Do you have a responsibility nearly? Do you have conversations with these young players and sort of trying to guide them and help them, take the step up into intercounty football?
Yeah, I would have spent a lot of time with the likes of Peter in the last number of years, and I travel sometimes with Oisín, who lives close as well. We're both North men, so there are opportunities are there to have wee conversations, or wee nudges to how he thinks things are going, or any sort of wee thing that I can impart, I suppose. But listen, them boys know what they're about, and they're predetermined boys, and Dara's the same. Like Dara's maybe a different sort of personality, you might say, but they're all three of them very focused and very determined, and really working very hard on themselves. And they're not there to make up the numbers. They're pushing everybody hard, pushing themselves hard, and you can see with the results and how they're performing. So who am I to change their approach and change what they're doing when arguably been our best players in the league campaign? So listen, if there's opportunities there to nudge a standard or improve, or if they ask, I'm happy to give my piece, but sometimes they might just laugh it off, perhaps.
And Aidan, obviously, Fermanagh coming up on Sunday here, first round of the championship away to Brewster Park. It's the second time he's been making this trip this year. Obviously, he's played there in the league and come out 4-point winners, but it was a tough day at the office. And I think, barring the league final, it was on the league final and the first league game, I think it was the only time he didn't get a goal. So I suppose that sort of shows Fermanagh is going to be a tough test here on Sunday.
No doubt about it. There's no easy games in Ulster. I think, like ourselves, Fermanagh will park the league, and they got a good win in the last day out as well. So they're coming in with a little bit of momentum, and two teams know each other very, very well, having played each other several times the last number of years. So we have to go up there and really dig it out, and they'll be looking to do the same. So we have to be really at the pitch of it on Sunday, as everybody has to be, or else they're going to be caught, no matter who you are. So we're definitely under no illusions that they're a proud county and a proud bunch of players who've got real quality and can hurt you. So we have to be on the top of our game for for this weekend and all the games going forward.
I think there's talk of the whole time made about easy side of the draw and all that sort of crack. But the last time Armagh played Fermanagh in Brewster, in the championship, I think it was 2018, the loss. So I don't think that'll not be a problem in the camp. I wouldn't think there's a lot of boys in the camp that were there that day and maybe still hurting over that one.
Yeah, I think you heard over all your defeats, but it's that long gone now. It's not very much mentioned. I think people in the media are mentioning it more than we would give it any airtime. So every year takes on a life of its own, never mind that long ago. But it shows you how tough Fermanagh are up there to beat, and we'll have to be, as I say, the hardest working team on that pitch on Sunday, and show what we can do, and hopefully that's enough.
And Aidan, I know this is your 12th year playing for Armagh. I'm sure a lot has changed in that time as well. You were a wing half forward on your championship debut. You're now centre half back, and you've played everywhere in between times. So how much are you enjoying it? I suppose now you're 12 years into it.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it as much as ever. I love going to training. I love training with the boys. We have a phenomenal group of boys who go at it every night, and I love lining out with them at the weekend. So enjoying it as much as I ever have, and I'm hoping it continues for a long summer this year and the next year and beyond. So as long as the body keeps serving me well, I'm hoping to be knocking about and trying to push this county on and chase big things and great days.
Hopefully there's more than big days to come, Aidan. Thanks very much for coming on, and best luck on Sunday and for the rest of the year.
Right, Sean, thanks a million.
Summit hurls through, he might go for it, still going, trying to barge his way through, goes to the shot, what a goal!
Arriving Rian O'Neill from an almost impossible angle, and that's the rousing score Armagh were looking for.
Turbot kicks this one in on an absolutely